Imagine you're an Englishman in 1734, and Jack and the Beanstalk just came out. Man, I wish I had a hen that could lay golden eggs too. Well, at least I still have the American colonies. Yeah, that lasts for 40 years, but at least you still have the classic story. Oh, what's that? You mean that harmless giant can be murdered? Or that there's a secret kingdom directly above London? Yeah, the German Blitz must have had a crazy time with that.
Oh shit, what is that?
Are you ready, my brother?
Jack the Giant Slayer. You know what was the original title of this story? Not He and the Beanstalk, oh no. It was originally called The Story of Jack Springens and the Enchanted Bean. Do you think the original author ever envisioned Lex Luthor from the hit 2025 movie Superman slaughtering friendly old giants with magic beans?
That's gonna be...
Probably not. Well, it also didn't start with the beanstalk. Not really. More on that in a second. In 2013, this movie came out, and you likely forgot about it until you saw this video on your recommendations page. Or you watched Superman and went down the rabbit hole of Nicholashoult's filmography. Either way, somehow you ended up here with me, recounting this movie. Oh yeah, it's certainly something, and I kinda love it. But first, very importantly first, the context. Yeah, so a lot of people, myself included, but I'm gonna pretend I knew for the sake of the video, didn't know about the classic Jack the Giant Killer. If you look at any review ever, everyone mostly assumes that the movie is trying to be an edgy version of Jack and the Beanstalk. So there are like hundreds to thousands of angry people that are upset because they didn't know about the other Jack and Giant story. Jack and the Beanstalk from 1734 isn't technically the original story. Jack the Giant Killer is. See, it originates from a Cornish fairy tale, theoretically an Arthurian story. There are even references to the original source material in Shakespeare's King Lear. But on the British Isles, especially in Cornish folklore and Welsh bardic lore, as well as Breton mythology, stories about giants are quite prevalent. The origins of Jack the Giant Killer are like one giant mixing pot, where there are parallels to the story Bluebeard, or specific references to Norse and Welsh mythology.
That's what...
The actual first written down and published version of Jack the Giant Killer predates the Beanstalk, which is in 1711 in an old English chapbook. And while the chapbook is cool, it's possible that the story dates back to the 1100s. So while we all know the story about the beanstalk, the golden egg laying hen, and whatever other riches come from the giants, the killer predates the stealer.
Ready!
It's kind of funny. Looking at it historically, it makes sense that the combined original inspirations are more bloodthirsty. Like, why wouldn't Jack be killing giants on the English Isles? They were getting clobbered by every other invading force. At least they could relish in defeating something that didn't exist. There are some interpretations of the giant killer that suggest Jack's a cousin of King Arthur.
God, I'm sozzled.
Because scholars predicted that people were growing tired of the Arthurian tales. They were classic, but people yearned for the mines.
As a child, I yearned for the mines.
No, literally they did. Jack murders a giant with a pickaxe. Come on, Minecraft, where's the giant update? I want to live out my Jack the Giant Killer fantasies. There really is a stark contrast between these two stories though. One is pretty harmless. Some kid couldn't sell a cow for coins, so he robs an old giant for fun and accidentally kills him. Whereas the other version is given magical devices from fucking Odin to slaughter, and do nothing but slaughter. And every so frequently he hangs out with King Arthur.
Sin.
You thought the MCU was inventing cameos, but no. The original cameo is Lucifer and King Arthur showing up like Thanos and Iron Man in the middle of Jack the Giant Killer.
I don't even know who you are.
And I am...
King Arthur.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Alright. Jack and the Beanstalk is very similar to the initial setup to Jack the Giant Slayer, the movie this video is actually about. It involves a poor country boy that trades a family cow for a bundle of magic beans. His widowed mother is pretty upset, logically, and she throws the beans out the window. The woman had a cannon on her arm, like Tom Brady, because she lodged those beans so far into the ground that they sprouted up into magnificent towers of stalk. Jack climbs up to find a castle. There's a regular-sized woman there for some reason, and she gives him food. And Jack, in return for her kindness, steals the giant's hard-earned coins. What does the giant do? Not important. The widow is pleased with her thieving son, and they live well for a little bit. After a while, Robin Hood, the psychotic version from Shrek,
For I am your savior!
climbs the stalk again for more milk and bread. Similar to before, Jack steals because he's so grateful that he's getting free food. This time, it's a hen that shits out golden eggs, but Jack isn't done yet. Oh no. After stealing the giant's generational wealth, he takes away the giant's golden harp. Why? Because fuck the giants. Go birds. Well, Jack still kills a giant because he, despite being a boy, outruns a giant, climbs down the beanstalk, and cuts it down before the giant can catch him. And what happens to the poor old giant? He gets smacked by fall damage and dies. Jack and his mother live happily ever after because her son murdered someone and they profited off of it. Truly family friendly. What about the giant killer?
What?
What?
Well, unlike these sky-faring giants from the other story, these giants are kind of like Shrek.
Really?
They live amongst the people. Cormoran, the first giant, is kind of a dick. He steals cattle because he can, and Jack learns there's a reward. So if he can kill the giant, he can get that reward. What do you think Jack the Giant Killer does? Nothing, technically. He digs a hole, like it's Minecraft, and taunts the giant. Then Cormoran falls into the hole and Jack Fortnite emotes on him. Like in the story itself, Jack tricks the giant into the hole, then just laughs at him and taunts him before doming the poor bastard in the head with his pickaxe. He is thus referred to as Jack the Giant Killer. Roll credits. Wait, what? It's not over? Yeah, so Jack goes on a bender. Another giant vows revenge and captures Jack. But Jack is just the Chad of the ancient world. He slays Blunderbore and his brother Rebex. Watch out, he's gonna call in his RC-XD with his kill streak. But Jack isn't done yet, because he manages to trick another giant into cutting his own belly open and killing himself. And this isn't even halfway through the fever dream yet. Jack is given magical items by a three-headed giant because Jack didn't burn his castle down, and then Jack uses those items to break a spell on a lady casted by Lucifer, before Jack then beheads Lucifer. Yeah, that Lucifer. Did I mention that King Arthur's son is also hanging out with Jack during this time? Then, he gets to meet the ancient Transformers because Jack is now a Knight of the Round Table.
No sacrifice, no victory.
I've come.
He mutilates a couple more giants, like really mutilates them.
No, Optimus!
Jack basically accounts for all the removed limbs in the Star Wars prequels in one story. He then drops a drawbridge on another giant, beheads another, and scares away a sorcerer. During his final battle, he saves the Duke's daughter, and King Arthur himself marries Jack to the Duke's daughter. The end. Yeah, so what the fuck was that?
And Francine.
It's clearly a story about Jack the Giant Killer, but it's so different compared to the Beanstalk. But wait, there's more. There is so much more.
No, God!
Yeah, so in 1962, they made a movie based on the killer. No one on Letterboxd or Reddit seemingly heard of it. So they're still mad that Ewan McGregor with spiky hair and nicholashoult ruined their childhood by obstructing Jack and the Beanstalk. But I figured, since I'm doing this video, I might as well just watch it. And I did. So because you're not going to, here's another short summary.
No. No way. No.
We start with the princess's birthday. She's given a gift, and she dances with a claymation Annabelle doll. Later that night, Annabelle transforms into a giant and captures her. As he escapes with the princess, a farm boy sees the giant and proceeds to lynch it.
What the fuck?
That doesn't kill the giant, because of course it doesn't.
Okay.
So he uses his pickaxe to stab it in the face numerous times. The king is so grateful that he just makes Jack a giant. We got an hour and 30-minute runtime. We gotta get through this thing ASAP.
Are you ready?
However, this is where any other parallel to the original story stops. In classic 1960s fashion, Jack is attacked by flying witches. Just look at them. Oh, they're very scary. Then he finds a Viking for some reason, and they find a warlock's castle. Inside the castle, the princess who was stolen during the witch raid is turned into a witch. Yeah, it gets worse.
Yeah?
Jack fights off the sorcerer with a leprechaun that the Viking captured in a bottle. What the fuck? Yeah, let me read that again. Jack fights off a sorcerer with a leprechaun that the Viking captured in a bottle. Then he frees the princess, who slips him some opium because she's still a witch, and Jack gets knocked out for like 5 minutes. The Viking is turned into a dog, and there's also a boy who is turned into a chimpanzee. So like half of the third act in this movie is just a dude running around with a chimpanzee, a dog, and a princess, getting chased by a two-headed claymation monstrosity. And oh yeah, the Viking forgot how to train his dragon, and Jack has to kill it. Then the movie just ends. Like, that's it. There were some other iterations of the Beanstalk published, but Jack and the Giant Killer was pretty much forgotten until the Nicholas Hoult movie came out. But no one remembered that there was ever a Giant Killer story. It really feels like while I was doing my research for this video, I discovered lost media, because no one I know remembers, let alone even heard of Jack the Giant Killer. So many pop culture references over the past couple decades have been made to the Beanstalk story, and it feels like the widely accepted story because no one's heard of the other one. In a way, it feels like because Lucifer got nerfed by a dork named Jack, he decided to wipe the story from everyone's mind.
Dwight's mind white.
Oh no.
And yeah, sure, the original story's a little trippy like Alice in Wonderland, but it's still enjoyable. It's actually much more fun than the other one. This is kind of like the original version of the Disney princess stories. The first is dark, gritty, and reflective of the medieval times, whereas the other one's kind of goofy. Though that actually does bring me to the movie this video is about. It's clear that Jack the Giant Slayer was attempting to invoke the same type of mythical feeling of Star Wars. It doesn't really. I was 13 when this came out, so for me, it kinda didn't. I didn't see it on the big screen, but I stumbled upon it on HBO at one point or another. When I came back to rewatch it for this video, I had a fun time like I did when I was a kid. I mean, there are some rough scenes that look like video game cutscenes, but that's alright. Real quick, because I'm 90% sure no one here remembered this movie, let's talk about it. Similar to the story at the Beanstalk, Jack this time sells a horse for magic beans, but he doesn't really sell it. He has the horse stolen by a monk, which if you know anything about the church's history in England, not really the biggest surprise. Instead of a mother, Jack's uncle is pissed. Oi, you sold me horse, you wanker! Is that racist? I don't know.
That's pretty racist, but correct.
Anyways, we have a nice little parallel between Jack and Isabel, the princess of the story. They both lost a parent. Jack eventually loses both, but they grew up with the giant story regardless.
Here comes the thunder.
The princess is a runaway. Unlike the original Killer story, where there is no princess, she becomes our main heroine, kinda. A rainstorm starts after she runs away from the castle and the Beanstalk grows. This is where the story combines the two, but also just skews off in a completely different direction. Obi-Wan searches for the high ground, naturally, and brings everyone with him.
Well then don't fall!
We also learn that Stanley Tucci is evil, like Steve Jobs from Transformers 4. He's a bit of a miscast in this movie, but I also find everything Stanley Tucci says funny, so shame on me, I guess.
Well done, Roderick. Have them release us at once.
I'm talking to giants.
The guys find the giants. We're introduced to Davy Jones himself and the rest of the Horde. They get mad at Isabel because her ancestor, King Eric, defeated them with the magic crown that Stanley Tucci found while dumpster diving under the castle.
The girl on fire so cheeky.
Isabel is sent to death, and ewanmcgregor is put into an oven. But not before Jack slays the giants. Ha! Got him.
Well done, Jack. Well done.
But one of my favorite things about this movie is you could just basically imagine Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Clone Wars, and it all kind of makes sense. Like the Obi-Wan side plot in a random Clone Wars episode is getting put into an oven by giants, while Anakin and Padme, or you know, Jack and Isabel, are lovey-dovey the entire time throughout the episode.
Run! Anakin, when I tell you to run, run.
Regardless, Jack and Isabel start climbing down the beanstalk. Ewan McGregor also attempts to assassinate Stanley Tucci.
That's fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Don't worry though, because the king is cutting down the beanstalk. Jack and Isabel almost die, and Ewan McGregor free falls. As a side note, if I had a nickel for every time Ewan McGregor was losing a fight by having the low ground, but somehow won, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but is weird as happened twice.
Don't you?
I may not be the hero of this story, but at least I get to see how it ends!
So yeah, Jack slayed 2 giants, first by actually stabbing one, then secondly by putting a beehive in his mask. The king then gives Jack some Fortnite V-Bucks and takes his daughter back to the castle. There's a little like goodbye princess thing that is pretty much just like Will calling Elizabeth Miss Swan in the first Pirates movie. So that happens.
At least the boy has a sense of propriety. Now, we really must be going.
The third act has the giants invade with Stanley Tucci's beans, there's a siege, and Jack slays his third giant by throwing a bean into his throat. It's really like surprisingly grim. The giant gets split into like 50 different pieces and just explodes. Jack gets King Eric's crown and becomes the hero protagonist of the kingdom. Happily ever after. Also, he's wearing a leather jacket in this end scene, which is certainly a choice. This movie is comparatively quite different from anything else we've seen from the Jack/Giant story. And that kind of starts with the casting. There is an insane cast here. This movie is like what would happen if you made a collaboration between the biggest things of the early 2000s. You've got Davy Jones as General Jimmy Fallon, Blackbeard the Pirate as King Bramwell, Obi-Wan Kenobi is playing Elmont, and Caesar Flickerman as Lord Roderick. That's not even mentioning Lex Luthor himself, Nicholashoult. But that does leave a question. What on God's green earth was Warner Bros. Thinking? I'm all for a little medieval fantasy here and there, but they dumped almost $200 million onto this movie. The sets look great, and the CGI is certainly something. But where did that money go? It only made back $197 million at the box office. Who were they trying to make this movie for? I think Jack the Giant Slayer had the same problem as Transformers 1.
That's not a problem.
I know, I love talking about TF1 on this channel, but Jack the Giant Slayer isn't necessarily made for kids because it's a PG-13 movie. But it's also not necessarily marketed like a movie for young adults. It's 110% a coming-of-age hero's adventure. Who doesn't love a story of a peasant farm boy winning the heart of the princess and whatnot? It's a classic. But just look at the trailer. It's not marketed for teens. It feels more directed for kids on summer break, and it's also not quite flashy enough like Pirates of the Caribbean to catch the attention of the average moviegoer. So not only did they dump $200 million into this project, but they forgot to make it look like it was marketed for people in their teenage years. Again, with a PG-13 rating, what parent is thinking, I do want my child to have nightmares of giants coming from the skies? Jack the Giant Slayer is basically that meme. Its CGI doesn't hold up all that well, but why would I dare call it an almost fantastical masterpiece? Who doesn't love a good fantasy? Game of Thrones is too serious for a casual watch, plus it has 75 seasons. Shrek is a nice middle ground. And The King is more realistic than fantastical. Yeah, I snuck The King in, featuring Timothy Chalamet because I like King Henry V due to a Dan Jones book. But this movie isn't terrible. It's quite enjoyable actually. The characters are fun. Jack is someone you can empathize with. Ewan is dropping one-liners like it's a prequels movie, and Bill Nighy is beyond cunning. There's really something about Bill Nighy playing CGI characters that I just love. He plays the lead giant in this movie, and every time I hear him on screen, I just envision Davy Jones.
And let this day be cursed by we who ready to wait.
He's just simply a force of nature, and despite all of this, despite the character growth and direction and the sets, it lacks at one crucial point: the giants.
Is you?
After watching this movie again, I went through the entire deleted scenes section, and they put a lot of effort into this. They filmed at Henry VIII's castle. Some of the beanstalk is real. They filmed the climbing scenes with specifically created beanstalk sets. Real effort went into this movie. They even tied off with a nice little knot, showing the crown jewels in the Tower of London as King Eric's crown. I just love, by the way, how this movie's ending is open-ended enough that if the giants returned in real life, King Charles could equip himself with the crown and defeat the giants like Jon Snow from that one battle. The costume designer for this movie even said that one day Nicholas Hoult was wearing a hoodie and she thought, wow, that's really cool, and it just became his outfit. Like, this movie does really do the fantasy thing pretty well.
You clever fucker.
Even the opening animation sequence is charming, in the nostalgic PS3 cutscene way. There's a lot of enjoyable quirks about this movie, and having come out at the time it did, it really should have been more popular. You had The Hunger Games, Maze Runner, Divergent, and The Giver 2014 the movie come out at around the same time. This was the era for coming-of-age stories. So what killed it? Well, firstly, it's absolutely the fact that no one knows the story of Jack the Giant Killer. I've spent days asking people if they've heard of it, and no one has. Not at the gym, nor at the dog park, my friends, nor family, not a soul. Yeah, to answer your question, it's not really easy bringing Jack the Giant Killer up in conversation. But evidently, starting a conversation with, hey, I just found lost media, gets the ball rolling pretty well. Every single time I brought up the 1711 story based off the 1100s tale, people are immediately intrigued by the concept of lost media. It's one of my favorite things ever for the past 2 weeks. I just get to lore dump insane Welsh fantasies onto people in 2025 by gaslighting them into thinking I found lost media. But secondly, aside from everyone thinking the Giant Slayer is an edgy version of Jack and the Beanstalk, the biggest failure, the biggest reason this movie doesn't hit the mark, is the giants. Here's fucking Leatherface, for example. The CGI hasn't aged well. Even back in 2006, they got Davy Jones to look like this. And it's the same actor too, so you can't be like, oh, Bill Nighy didn't bring his A game. Nah bruh, that's Bill Nighy. He's the Andy Serkis of mocap. Wait, what? No! When the central focus of your story is giants, they kinda have to be good. And this movie went a little too hard in the direction of, look at those fugly bastards, rather than just having them be big guys. There are really too many close-up shots of them, and I think it was a bit of a turnoff. I'm not saying this is a once-in-a-generation story, but this for me is more of a sweet spot. It's not as goofy as something like Shrek, which I do enjoy Shrek.
Not just yet.
It's more of a classic medieval fantasy, and before I ever knew about Jack the Giant Killer, I thought this movie was just a unique take on the Beanstalk, rather than a cultural abomination according to Letterboxd.
How could you, man?
And the story is perfectly fine. Its first act is a little slow, as most heroes' journeys are, but once they climb the stalk, Act 2 and Act 3 flow really naturally. There's a heroic sweeping score that sticks in your head, and the actors have really good chemistry on screen. What I love most, and what I think I love more about this story now, is how well it adapts both the Giant Killer and Beanstalk stories. It's not just a copy-paste of the Giant Killer Welsh tale. Granted, that would probably be like a rated R movie, but it's also not nearly as, I don't really know how to describe the 1962 movie I was talking about earlier. But it's not like that, basically. This story is unique in its own right for this specific genre. It has some grittiness, romance, mysticism, and it's a fun medieval fantasy. But what failed this movie, more than anything, this topic was a bit too niche. fantasy wasn't in 10 years ago for the age demographic this movie targeted. Just look at Dungeons and Dragons from a couple years ago. Yeah, Game of Thrones was getting off the ground. Pirates of the Caribbean fell off the edge of the world 2 years before. And then there's this, Jack the Giant Slayer. Hunger Games carried the coming-of-age young adult genre. It still really does, honestly. And that leaves this goofy, fantastical, almost masterpiece lost in time. Just like Jack the Giant Killer, it'll probably be forgotten, seen as a darker take on the classic tale that came second. But to me, I'll keep watching. I'll remember, even if no one does, that this cute standalone movie exists. Because nothing beats being one of those movies that makes you think it'd be cool to live in the medieval times. And yeah, honestly, aside from the plague and dying because he got the shits once, it seems pretty cool. At least they were pretty honest about their kings and corruption. So, if you like me, King Henry V, and slaying dragons, you know what to do.
For Frodo.